Hello everybody, this is another Hot Wheels collector video. Today we are taking a look at the Nissan Skyline GTR BCNR33, also known as the Nissan Skyline R33. And this specific casting is depicting the V-Spec version, as it does have various V-Spec body parts to it. This casting first debuted in 2018, however this recolour features in the 2024 D case, and this is a very sought after recolour because A, the casting is very popular and good, and B, this recolour is stunning. Now then, this car does feature in the 2024 Hot Wheels J Imports miniseries, and it is car number 5 out of 10 in that set, and this is car number 96 out of 250 for the 2024 mainline. Now then, I will quickly mention where I managed to find this car. So I managed to find this car here in the UK at a local Lidl store at the price of £1.49. That is a super cheap price, especially for super desirable cars like this. I was super happy to be able to find this car at such a low price. It's not very often that Lidl stores stock Hot Wheels. In fact, they only get them about once a year. So when they do carry them, loads of people flood to the shops, and it means that they don't last very long at all. They last a couple days and then all the desirable cars are gone. I think that's because A, they get new stock in, and B, they are sold at a very low price here in the UK. But yeah, the first time I went to my local Lidl store, they had not put any out. I had heard in Facebook groups that Lidl stores were going to be getting 2024 DKs, so I rushed to all of my local stores, none of them had them in. But the second time I went to my stores, yes, they had just put them out, literally the night before. The first store I went to didn't have any of these Skylines, but luckily the second one had one left. I definitely picked that thing up straight away as soon as I saw it. I was so happy, and yep, this is the one you are looking at right now. Now then, let me give you some facts about the real life car. So in real life, this car has a 2.6 litre inline 6 engine, which is twin turbocharged, and this engine produces 276 horsepower and 375 newton meters of torque, converting to 277 pound-feet of torque. This car is also front engined and also is all-wheel drive. And this car has a 5-speed manual gearbox paired up with its inline 6 engine. And this car has an approximate top speed of around 155 miles per hour. That converts to 250 kilometers per hour. And this car has a 0 to 60 time in just 5 seconds. Very impressive, especially for the age of this car, being from the 1990s. This car also has a curb weight of 1,530 kilograms, so it's not really that light at all, and this thing was produced between 1995 and 1998. 100 V-Spec Skyline R33s were imported to the UK by Nissan, and they were sold for around £50,000 each when new, and when inflation is considered, this would be around £110,000 in today's money, and that converts to $140,000 in today's money as well. And now this car has an approximate value of around £42,000, but that can go up to £52,000 for some very good examples of this car. That converts to $53,500 all the way up to $66,200. And that is a pretty low price, and that is due to the R33 being the least popular Skyline out of the R32 and the R34 GTR. I think those cars kind of just outshine this one, and a lot of people unfortunately forget about this car, which is really sad as it is a really cool car. And finally, I would like to tell you why Hot Wheels have decided to put the Godzilla livery on this car. Now the reason is the Nissan GTR receives the Godzilla nickname, and this is due to the car being very similar to the fictional Japanese monster which features in a Japanese film that destroyed everything in its path. And it is said that the GTR also destroyed everything in its path in the racing successes it did have. But anyways, that is it for the facts about this thing, so now let's move on to my showcase of this Hot Wheels model. Alright, so kicking off this showcase then, we'll first of all take a look at the side of this car, and I would first of all like to mention the wheel choice on this thing. So this car is rolling on the 10-spoke wheels, which first debuted in 2003, and on this car they have been painted in grey. Next up, for the colour of this car then, it's been completely painted in a metallic white colour. And next up, for the tampo work along the side of this thing then, there is plenty of it, so let's get straight into this. So first of all, we've got this scratch featuring along the side of this thing, tampoed in black. It does have 4 claw marks in it, and that is because Godzilla, the character, does have 4 claws. Very good attention to detail there from the Hot Wheels team. Next up, you can see the image of Godzilla being tampoed on here in black, very detailed there. We also do have the Godzilla writing being tampoed in black, and just below that we do have some red text, which does translate to Godzilla as well. And then just to the right of that we do have the Hot Wheels logo being tampoed in black, and then just below that we've got the turn signal of this car being tampoed in orange. It does feature in the metal casting as well, in the form of a protrusion from the rest of the body of this thing. It is not just simply tampoed on there, and the same goes for the GTR badge just below that, which has been tampoed in silver. Again, that does feature in the metal casting. Speaking of metal casting, we've got plenty of details in the metal casting of this car. So first of all, you can see this car's fuel filler cap featuring in the metal casting here. You can also see this car's door handle featuring in the metal casting too. And you can also see that this car's front headlight does continue around to the side of this thing, once again in the metal casting there. All of those have been engraved into the metal casting very well. I would also like to mention that unfortunately this car does not have any wing mirrors. That is a real shame, as it does make this car look a little bit less realistic. It really would have been nice to have seen wing mirrors on this car, but yeah, we unfortunately didn't get them here. And hopefully you can see that this car is right-hand drive, since it is from Japan in real life. And this car also does have black interior plastic. I would also like to finally mention that this car's windows on the side are completely wound up. But anyways, that is it for the side of this thing. So now let's move on to the front of this car. Alright, so taking a look at the front of this car then, there is no tampo work here, but there's still plenty of detail in the form of metal casting and also plastic usage, so let's get straight into this. So first of all, I would like to mention that this car's headlights do feature in the metal casting here. You could easily add your own details to these headlights using something like Sharpie or acrylic paints. Next up, I would like to mention that this car's front grille does feature in the metal casting here in the form of an indentation. It is not a hole or shut off in the metal casting, it is just a simple indentation. I would also like to mention that the portion of this car where the GTR badge would sit on the real life thing does feature in the metal casting here in the form of a protrusion from the rest of the grille of this car. On the real life car, the entire front grille is the same level, whereas the central portion of the main front grille of this Hot Wheels model is raised from the rest of the front grille, so that on premium models the GTR badge can be added to this thing. However, you could easily add your own GTR badge to this mainline model, once again using something like Sharpie or acrylic paint. Next up, I would like to mention that this car's 2 lower small vents do feature in the metal casting here as well, in the form of a small indentation. You can also see this car's lower fog lights do feature in the metal casting here as well, once again in the form of an indentation. And next up, onto the plastic usage, there's plenty of detail here. So first of all, this car's large lower vents does feature here in the form of a hole or shut off in the metal casting, and this does lead through to the black base plastic, which has been textured to create a very detailed lower grille. This is a really nice detail from the Hot Wheels team here. And I would also like to mention that this car's lower front splitter also does feature, created by the black base plastic of this car. I would also like to mention that this front splitter on this thing also does have 2 more small vents featuring in it, and these are in the form of an indentation in this black base plastic. But anyways, that is it for the front of this thing, so now let's move on to the next side of this car. Next up, taking a look at this side of the car then, it is the exact same as the previous side, so I'm not going to bore you with going over everything all over again. The only difference is this side does not have the fuel filler cap. I would also like to mention that there is a small detail featuring along the side of the spoiler of this car, featuring in the metal casting. This is in the form of a small indentation, and it simply is a design cue which features on the real life car's spoiler. That's simply it. It is meant to be there, so your model should have this small indentation on the side of the spoiler. So do not worry if you do see it on your car, it is meant to be there. But yeah, that is it for the side of this thing, so now onto the rear of this car. Next up, taking a look at the rear of this car, there is plenty of detail here, in the form of metal casting, plastic usage, and also tamper work. So let's get straight into this. First of all, we'll take a look at the tamper work. So first of all, you can see this car's main rear lights featuring here, tampered in red. So the inside of these rear lights have been tampered in a light red, whilst the outside of these rear lights have been tampered in a darker red. Next up, I would like to mention that the lower portion of this car's rear lights has been tampered in silver. Now on the real life car, this portion of the rear lights does include the turn signal lights, the fog light, or the rear fog light I should say, and also the reverse light, which is just a single reverse light on this car. Next up, I would like to mention that the GTR badge does feature here, tampered in a mixture of silver and reds. You can also see this car's trunk release button, featuring here tampered in silver. It also does feature in the metal casting here, in the form of a protrusion from the rest of the body of this car. And the final bit of tamper work on the rear of this thing is you can see the GTR writing or logo being tampered onto the license plate portion of this car. This has been tampered in silver. Next up, onto the metal casting then, we do have some details here. So first of all, you can see this car's spoiler featuring in the metal casting. This is accurate to the standard Nissan Skyline. You can also see this car's license plate holder portion featuring in the metal casting here as well. And finally, you can see this car's exhaust pipe being created by the black base plastic of this car. But anyways, that is it for the rear of this thing, so now let's move on to the top of this car. And finally, let's take a look at the top of this car. So first of all, you can see this car's spoiler from a top view, featuring in the metal casting here. Hopefully you can see these small bulges featuring in the black interior plastic inside of the car. Now these are meant to represent speakers which do feature on this portion of the real life car inside. Unfortunately, this car does not have any windshield wipers, which is a real shame. It is going to affect my score at the end of this video in a negative way, unfortunately. Next up, you can see that this car's windshield washer fluid squirters do feature here in the metal casting. These are here in the form of a protrusion from the rest of the body of this car. And I would also like to mention, whilst we are taking a look at the hood of this car, that the hood portion of this thing does have a small bulge in it, and this is accurate to the real life car. But that is it for the top of this thing, and that is also it for my showcase of this car. So now let's move on to my final thoughts and review on this thing. Alright, so now it is time for my final thoughts and review on this car. I'm a big fan of this casting. I think it's very detailed. It is very unfortunate it doesn't have any wing mirrors or windshield wipers. Yeah, if it did have those, it would have easily been a 10 out of 10 for me. Honestly, it's just so good looking. And for a mainline, this thing has a lot of detail. It also would have been nice to have seen the front receive tamper work, where we would see some headlight detailing. But we've got to remember this is a mainline, so yeah. For a mainline, as I've said, really good model. I like the colour here. I think the white looks really good on this casting. It does kind of highlight the lack of details on the front though, but again, I like this colour a lot on this casting. The tamper work is fantastic, loads of detail there, and I also really like the wheel choice on this thing as well. I think those wheels paired up with this casting look very, very nice, in grey especially. But yeah, now it is time for my score out of 10 for this thing. So what am I going to give this car out of 10? It is going to be receiving a totally deserved 9 out of 10. As I've said, if it had wing mirrors and windshield wipers, it would have gotten a 10 out of 10, but it is unfair to give this car a 10 out of 10 when I have knocked other cars for not having the same details. So yeah, if I did give this car a 10 out of 10, it would not have been fair at all. So I do have to be fair to all of the cars I have reviewed in the past. But yeah, that's really it for this video. So if you guys did enjoy, make sure to like. If you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. Remember, you can also press that notification bell so you do not miss new uploads. Remember, you can also share this video with any friends, family, or any groups who may be interested. But remember, don't feel pressure to if you don't feel like you have anybody who may be interested. You watching this video all the way to the end means so much to me, and I really do thank you for making it all the way up until this point. But anyways, that is it for this video, so I hope you guys did enjoy, and I really do hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye bye everyone.